Hey everybody, what's up? I want to talk about The Last Guardian today. We all know the history of this game. It was revealed back in E3 2006, I want to say. It might have been 2005. And it was revealed as a launch title, or at least one of the launch lineup games for the PlayStation 3. And it was when it was revealed, it was a very shocking game for its art direction, the way it looked, the type of stuff it was powering. It was a great showcase for like the PlayStation 3 hardware because you had like this giant beast and you had physics all over him and you had this small boy and you had these gigantic puzzle like levels. It was a very different experience than what you've seen before. And this is made by the same people who did Shadow of the Colossus, and so it has a lot of those similarities. But because of how well Shadow of the Colossus did and how impactful that game was, this is what really brought The Last Guardian to be this really impactful type of game. So, with this being said, I sort of jumped into this game and I tried to be as open minded as possible. I wasn't really super hyped for the game, although I was interested in it. It wasn't something that I was just so utterly excited for, like a lot of people. In fact, I didn't really know what to expect. We saw the one gameplay trailer, and the game was constantly delayed, and I didn't know what exactly this experience would entail. I just said, you know what, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna give it my shot, I'm just gonna sit here with an open mind and be patient and go through. I have to say that I am enjoying this game. However, it's not without its flaws. And I'm going to talk about some of these flaws, and they're big flaws, mind you. They're actual frustrating flaws that somewhat kill my enjoyment for the game at various times. But it's this strong narrative. It's this beautiful art direction. It's this alone that pushes me to further complete this game. I've always said that you can have a game that has mediocre gameplay, but if it has a strong narrative, it will push you to beat the game because you really want to see, you're really invested in this experience and you really want to see what's going to happen at the end of this journey. So, the Last Guardian, you play as this little boy. You have this little monster, this big monster, excuse me, who's you sort of meet with the game. You sort of meet at the beginning of the game. You guys are kind of hostile towards each other, and the game sort of embarks on this journey that you and him have to sort of get out of this place that you're in, and there's these suits of armor guys that are trying to take you somewhere, and it's a very interesting game. It's kind of told like a great anime, for instance, because the game is told from a narrator. In fact, your main character is narrating the story here as if he's like as if the present time is like many years in the future, and he's telling back his story of okay how he came back to the village and stuff like that. And it's interesting. And the game starts off by basically placing you somewhere. You don't know where you are, you don't know what happened, you're just sitting here and you're good to go. And what's cool here is that the game has at various points flashbacks to what happened and where you came from and how you ended up in this world. And they're really well done cutscenes. In fact, you'll sit there with your mouth hanging open at times. You're like, this is incredible, direction and work and whatnot. And it's this type of emotional connection that you're sort of harrowed into believing between this young boy and this gigantic beast called Trico, and it's just done really well here. I have to say that the relationship between the two, it starts off in a somewhat hostile position, and then you sort of take care of the beast and you both realize that you have to look after one another. It's incredible how this thing starts off and how it develops over time, and you really start to care for this beast later on in the future. You really start to want to understand and put a lot of effort into making sure that you guys get out of there alive. And what's nice is that both of them can't survive without the other. You both have a purpose and you both need to help each other if it's in order to get out of here, essentially. So it's done really well building this relationship between you and this beast, and it's really, it does have a strong emotional connection, and you do feel a sense of urgency when the beast is in trouble, or when you're in trouble, you're like trying to call out for help. And at times you'll sit there and the thing will come, to aid and rescue you, and you're just like, oh yeah, he's here, woo! He's gonna kick some ass and stuff, and you both, basically live to fight another day. So it's just this great, like, that's what this game does best above all. It's this relationship between this, it's just done really well. And if anything, I think the game should be experienced for that alone, because you really do buy into this relationship. Another thing I absolutely love about the game is this animations. The animations here are some of the best animations I've ever seen in this generation. We're talking about excellent animation, especially with the boy in particular. He has different animations for almost every step he takes. It's incredible. Like, this game's very physics based, right? It's a puzzle platformer after all, so it has to be physics based. And the boy will react dynamically and realistically to the type of surface he's stepping on. If you jump onto a ledge, he'll fall realistically and bending toward his body realistically. And it's incredible because you like jump towards a stone, he'll like catch on, and it's almost uncanny the way that he's able to climb up and just move throughout this world. It's incredible to see his animations, especially the beast too, because the beast really reacts and acts like he is a pet. It's absolutely fantastic at times. So this is something that I absolutely love about the game. It's animations work because of the good animations. This means that the characters are now grounded in the reality that they're in. And the game's world is massive. It is very sterile at times, but beautiful as well. It is one color, right? You essentially have one color, which is gray. And the world is gray. It's like gray and tan. It's very muted, the color stone. But it's supposed to kind of be like that. You're essentially put in this place that's kind of segregated off from the rest of the world. And it's supposed to be, not colorful, very, very desaturated. And at times you have, a lot of greenery, a lot of overgrown stuff. And it adds for some beautiful scenery and definitely a different feel to a world that I've, never been in before. At the same time, this also adds a sense of, invariability. So you don't really feel like you really have much variety in terms of the world. You kind of go around, you're like, everything, it looks almost the same, and there's very little deviation off from what you're basically used to in the standard world. Very little deviation, but it's still, it's there. So going into the world, just understand that a lot of the things are going to look the same, and this can also mean that sometimes for puzzle platforming sections, it's going to be hard to tell where you're going. In fact, numerous occasions I got lost in where I was supposed to go because a lot of things just look the same. And at times you're going to have to look around the world, and often you have to look up, and it can be much of a challenge to figure out where you're supposed to go and what you have to do. So like I said, it requires a very patient mind, this type of game. It really does. You have to be of a patient perspective and mindset in order to basically go through this game. And I think that's tried and true with every type of platformer and puzzle game, that you really just have to have the patience. A lot of people like this difficulty and using their brain and going through, and I think that there's some strategic element like that to The Last Guardian. But keep in mind that that's not for everyone. And I think a lot of people are going to go into this thinking, oh, well, I'm going to play this game because, this game has such a rich history with the PlayStation 3 and it's finally out and I've got to experience it. And a lot of people go into it thinking it's just going to be like a walk, a piece of cake. And they realize like, oh shit, this is weird. This is so cryptic. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And it could, cause people to get really frustrated and end up, not wanting to play the game. So just keep in mind that going into it, you have to be very patient. Gameplay here consists of a very simple formula. You're basically jumping and figuring out puzzles to move on to the next section. Now, there's a couple of issues that I have with this game that kind of detract and destroy my experience. Very, very much at numerous occasions throughout my playthrough, I was just kind of like a bit frustrated. Number one is the control system. Now, although the controls are simple, the way that everything handles is that you will end up messing up a lot of times. Sometimes the boy will not react and do things that you want him to do. sometimes everything has weight to it, you know. So you have to understand that going in is that this sort of goes hand in hand with the animation system, but this can also mean that, you know, trying to jump and climb on stuff, it can be much of a challenge. You have to be accurate with your jumps. There is no controlling him mid jump. There's, you jump, you will fall in that direction and you die. So it's a bit interesting from that perspective. Another thing I do want to point out is the camera. This game has a terrible camera that consistently clips into objects and obstructs your view. You will see times throughout this video where you think I'm messing around with the camera. I'm not. I'm trying to get the camera to center and react perfectly to what I need to do and actually see what I'm doing. But the camera will consistently, you'll be at a constant battle with it. At times you'll have the camera move over to another side, then it will automatically move over to a different side that you don't want it to do. At times the camera will actually move inside an object and clip your object, or move so close to an object that it obstructs your view and that the screen becomes black because it's basically facing a wall. This is one of the worst cameras I've played in recent memories for a video game. It really has, and I'm such ashamed to say that because of how rich this game's history is, and you know how we all know it got delayed for so long, and the fact that it's out is even amazing. But the fact of the matter is that the camera is terrible. It is terrible. I'm not exaggerating here either. I am at a constant battle with the camera, and this makes things more difficult. It makes things more frustrating. At times, I'm just sitting there and I set my controller down. I'm just like, really? You're really going to battle with me right now. The freaking game's camera. You get really amped and frustrated trying just to get the camera to behave the way that it should. Alright, so the camera sucks in the game. There's also a thing I want to point out is that I think this is actually design intentional, however, I'm not 100% positive. Sometimes Trico doesn't do the stuff that you want him or her to do. I mean, like, sometimes you'll tell him to go down or to look up at an object or look up at a space and tell him to jump, and he'll look around and he won't just do stuff, and sometimes you'll have to tell him like 3-4 times before he finally looks up and realizes there's a ledge. I don't know if that's design intentional, because it could be design intentional because they're trying to create a realistic relationship between a boy and this creature, and essentially it's like you and your pet. You can tell it takes a lot of effort and time to teach a pet to do tricks and to teach a pet to do commands. You know, your dog doesn't just automatically learn to sit when you point at the floor. You know, you have to teach it, and the dog has to understand and get into the habit of understanding, okay, when you point down it means yes. So I think that this may be design intentional, is that they made him a little bit difficult to control and not as responsive. However, I'm not 100% sure on that. It's not too bad, but at times you'll be sitting there and the game will take forever to finally realize what you want him to do, and it just kind of sucks at moments. But like I said, that could be part of the design, if they actually wanted you to feel like you're actually trying to teach a pet to do stuff. So it could go hand in hand. Those are the three frustrating things. The bad camera. Sometimes Trico doesn't do the things that you want him or her to do. And the last thing I said was the control set could be just sometimes frustrating and a little bit unforgiving and not as practical, let's just say. Overall, though, I will say that The Last Guardian is an enjoyable game. You just have to go into it with an extremely patient personality. You cannot go into this expecting to beat it in a matter of a couple hours. It doesn't work like that. This is a game that requires patience. It is a game that you have to be in the correct mindset for, and it cannot be something that's just a throwaway, quick and done experience. You will have to sit there and be invested and sit there and say to yourself, okay, I'm going to be focused, I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to enjoy this game. And I think with that mindset, if you do that beforehand, you will end up with a very enjoyable experience, and definitely an unforgettable experience at times too. I love this story for this game. It really does do a great job at conveying a good personality between the creature and this boy. I love that element. However, when it comes with the frustration of the actual game's mechanics, it can be hit or miss at times. I think The Last Guardian is definitely worth playing if you have a PlayStation 4. However, as a continuous experience, this may or may not work. It depends on your playstyle, but like I said, it requires a very patient person to play this game. I'm lucky enough that I have that patience and that stubbornness to be able to sit through this, and kind of find the fun in the game. And if you can, you'll be brought with what is undoubtedly a very emotional experience between a boy and his companion, his friend, more or less, in this world. And both of you guys are alone. You really do buy this element, and I'm excited to see it through the end here. I think that the ending is going to be hopefully very sad and depressing, and really have a strong message when it comes to relationships and companions and friendship and whatnot. So that's what I think about The Last Guardian. Is it worth experiencing? Yes, but with an asterisk. Keep in mind that you need to be patient, like I said, and you need to be able to have a lot of time spent with this game. If you understand that going into it, it's gonna have a terrible camera, the actual beast may not be responsive to what you want it to do, and the game's overall control system may or may at times be frustrating and unforgiving, then you will have a good, enjoyable experience. But other than that, it is a great, solid story here that it is telling, and it does a great job at conveying it. So you guys have a good one. Let me know what you think if you played The Last Guardian, and I will see you all later.